Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are joined for another Magic Talk with Toad. Say hello, Toad.
Hello, Toad.
Amazing. Today, we are going over two decks that we played last week that we wanted to give a bit of a highlight on and talk about. One of which is a deck featuring cards, well, mostly just a card, but it's still a cool card, from Marvel's Spider-Man, the newest Magic the Gathering set, which it's a rough set, but it has some fun cards. And then we wanted to focus on a deck Toad played last week that Toad is Toad's new baby. They've been really enjoying it, and it's a very interesting list. I've gone through and around it a few times with some of my builds, but it can definitely be oppressive. And Toad, didn't you win a tournament with it recently?
I 3-0'd a tournament last week, a small F&M level tournament, and it's also 2-1 an F&M level tournament. So it's kind of putting in some results.
Hey, that's pretty good. And both lists are like a little bit janky and goofy. Toad's list is better. It just is. But I think they're both very fun, or they can be fun. And also, they're for Value Vintage. I should have mentioned that. Whatever. Value Vintage is a way of playing Magic where it's your entire deck. It's all vintage ban list and restricted cards, but you have a $30 budget for Decklist and sideboard. And on the screen a few seconds ago, there will be a little tag in the corner where you can find our video where it's our intro to Value Vintage. You should watch it. It's really cool. We are joined by our friend Foster. Anyway, so do you want to get into this first list? I was thinking Bad Luck first and then Yojimbo.
Yeah, we can do that.
I will share my screen with you so you see what I'm talking about. There you go.
Whoop.
Perfect.
Yep.
So this is Bad Luck. It's a Value Vintage list. It's currently sitting at 29.52, and it's focused around two key cards. One of which is Keen Duelist, which we'll get into in a second, and the other which is Parker Luck. Parker Luck is a Spider-Man card. We went over into our set review slash top picks video, which we will list in a second. It should be on screen a few seconds ago. But Parker Luck is a really interesting card where it says at the beginning of your end step, two target players each reveal the top card of their libraries. They each lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player. Then they each put the card they revealed into their hand, and it's 2 and a black for an enchantment. Keen Duelist does the same effect, more or less, and as a creature, it's a 2/2 for 2. Hell of a hate bear.
Notably, Parker Luck triggers on your instep, and Keen Duelist triggers in your upkeep. So Parker Luck will do damage basically before your opponent gets to untap. Keen Duelist will not.
Yeah. But you can get
So out of the two, Parker Luck is better. It's harder to remove, and it's just harder to interact with in general. Although it is a little bit weaker to stuff like Spell Pierce.
Yeah. But this list is all about doing big mana stuff. And getting a bunch of big creatures into the yard and then bringing them back. And we're bringing it, and we're bringing it, and we're bringing it back. Fireball! Anyway. So we have Angel of the Ruin. Oh,
yep.
no.
We've got some cycling. We've got 3 Angel of the Ruins, 4 Street Wraith, and 4 Troll of Khazad-dûm. So these are 5+ mana cards that put themselves in your graveyard to be reanimated. The Street Wraith is actual cycling, whereas the other two are land cycling. The Troll is very difficult to block and has 6 power. The Angel is a flying 5 power. The Angel also comes with 2 Exile Disenchants when it comes into play. So if the opponent is doing some prison stuff with like Rest in Peace Energy Field, or if they have like Affinity and they're on artifact lands and artifact creatures and cranial plating, the Angel can kind of clean that stuff up. And then the Street Wraith is usually not what you're in to reanimate, but 3 power Swamp Block does eventually kill the opponent. And the thing about this deck is you do not need to do a ton of damage in combat. You are normally looking to deal like 5 damage, like 1 hit with one of the big creatures is probably going to be enough to win, because of how much damage you're doing with the Keen Duelist and the Parker Lux directly to face.
Yeah. Which gets into a very fun card. Go.
Yeah. We've got Shadow of Mortalities in here. These guys are a little bit expensive, so we only have 3. It's probably worth finding room for a 4. We can't really force them to be on top of our library because we're not a blue deck. So we're just kind of trying to draw them naturally with the Keen Duelist and the Parker Luck. And this is just 15 damage up front. So, like, you have Keen Duelist, you flip Shadow of Mortality, you hit them with a reanimated troll, the game's over.
Yeah, and you can do that turn 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Turn 1 Cycle Troll, turn 2 Life Death, turn 3 hit them, play a Parker Luck, go to the end step, they're dead.
Yep.
Now, you have to have the right cards in the right order, so it's not a guaranteed turn 3 kill by any means, but you have the potential, and the opponent is going to have to respect that.
I've pulled it off a few times before. It's pretty funny.
And then we've also got 2 Scyzon Perverter of Truth. How much are these guys sitting at right now?
Let me see. Wrong button. Don't close, damn you. They're sitting at about $1.
Yeah, these are not super necessary for the deck. It's very possible that these should just be another Shadow of Mortality and an Angel of the Ruins. But our sort of backup win condition outside of the Reanimator Parker Luck stuff is we have a playset of Black Vice, and Scyzon is in the deck to support that plan primarily.
Yeah.
Because Scyzon plus a Black Vice, if the opponent is not a combo deck that can kill you, and by the time you're playing a Scyzon, you should know if your opponent is a combo deck or not, then Black Vice is going to punish them very hard for drawing 3 or 4 cards a turn.
Scyzon is one of the cards you sideboard out first. It's just how it is.
Yeah. Scyzon is also a 6/5. So again, we're looking for like 5 or 6 damage to hit them. And he doesn't have any evasion, but he does have 6 power and he can get in. So that's all the creatures. We've got the life deaths in the sorcery section. So life death is pretty standard for this type of reanimator deck. It's just bad reanimate, 1 more mana. We also have 2 Charnel Serenade, which is a little bit more of an unconventional one. So this is a 6 mana spell that mills and then reanimates a creature from your surveils, right? Yeah, it surveils, so it can help us put stuff on top, and then it reanimates a creature from the graveyard, and then it exiles itself with time counters on it. So in 3 turns, it'll happen again.
Though it does give it a finality counter, which does matter.
It does not usually matter. The removal in this format is primarily counterspells and Swords to Plowshares. And also, by the time 3 turns have passed, we're going to have found another cycling creature.
Yeah.
Like, finality counters just are not something that I would worry about ever in this deck. Now, if you're trying to loop creatures, then yeah, finality counters are a drawback. But we're not doing that. We're just, here's a big guy, here's another big guy, here's a third big guy. So we don't care that much about the finality counter. We really care about it costs 6 mana for the Parker Luck effects, and it surveils 3. So this is really our only way to stack the top of our deck. It's not a great way to do that, but it does do it. And it gives us some late game push through unless it gets countered. So this deck does kind of struggle with just pure counter magic,
Yeah.
which luckily a lot of people are not running a ton of counter spells. You have blue-white control lists that are kind of counter heavy, but other than that, most of the blue tempo decks are on like 3 or 4 loose focus and some sideboard spell pierces. And if that's what our opponent is doing, we can just stick a couple Keen Duelists and just try and go.
Yeah.
Sorry. We've got the Black Vices and a Soul Ring, so just artifacts are pretty simple. Enchantments, we've got the 4 Parker Lucks that we talked about, which are our primary win condition. We've got 4 Deafening Silence. So if you're giving the opponent a bunch of cards, how do you make it so that those cards are just not going to kill you? The answer is they can draw as many cards as they want. They can only cast 1 non-creature spell a turn. We're not super concerned about them casting a bunch of creatures, because creatures that are mana efficient, so like 1-2 mana creatures that they could legitimately threaten to double or triple spell with, are not going to stand up very well to our reanimation targets.
Yeah.
They're playing like a 2 mana 2/2 with a good ability. We're playing a 2 mana reanimate a 6/5 or a 5/7 flyer. So we're not super worried about getting outpaced with creatures on the ground. We're more worried about spell-based combos. So like High Tide, Channel Mirror, Rhino decks is what we're more worried about losing to.
Yeah.
And Deafening Silence is going to really come in just game 1 immediately and gum up what those decks are trying to do.
In testing,
And
a
then
turn
can
with
you
Deafening Silence
read...
can really handicap some decks.
Yeah, if you go like turn 1 Black Vice, turn 2 Deafening Silence, Black Vice, you can really put a hurting on people. And
And
like, yeah, that's 2 of the same card, but it is a 4-of. It's colorless, so any land cast it.
yeah. And then the other enchantment, we have 2 of them, but this is really funny because the collective mana for it is 11. 5 plus 2, 7
Yeah.
plus 4. It's 11. It's Cramp Vents and Access Maze. And Cramp Vents says whenever you unlock this door, this room deals 6 damage to target creature and opponent controls. You gain life equal to the excess damage dealt this way. So, if for 4 mana, you can just shoot something down. And if it's something small, you get the life back. And Access Maze doesn't come in often too much, but it still matters. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand by paying life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. With how this deck works, is it's kind of meant to take a little bit of a beating because you're putting yourself at that risk with Parker Luck and Keen Duelist. Your goal is to make them lose more life than you're losing, which is the whole shtick. But every now and then you'll hit something big of theirs, and the back half of Access Maze is useless. But it's an 11 drop enchantment that is meant to be hit off of with Keen Duelist and Parker Luck.
Yeah, all of our big spells, so the Room and the Shadow of Mortality and the Land Cyclers, all of them do stuff for much cheaper than their mana cost. So you're not paying the full price for Shadow of Mortality. You're only paying $4 or 4 mana for the vents. You're only paying 1 or 2 to land cycle your big creatures. So the mana curve on this deck looks really high, but we only actually have 4 cards that cost more than 3 in some way. We've got 2 Saisons in the rooms.
Yeah.
And those are both cards that are intended to be played either at the end of the game or they're situational. So you don't always want to do 6 damage to a creature. Your opponent might not even have any creatures.
Yeah.
But you do want to flip over an 11 to Keen Duelist.
And like I said, the deck has some weaknesses. It's a little bit goofy. But it can get wins out of nowhere, and people kind of have to respect it.
Yeah, it does very large chunks of damage to the opponent's face. This is really a Reanimator burn deck, but it just doesn't play most of the cards you would assume from a Reanimator deck or a burn deck.
Yeah.
As far as the lands, it's just a very simple mana base. Like, there's nothing fancy going on here at all.
We have a single Sunlit Marsh.
Yep. We're a little bit heavier into black just because the reanimation stuff is all black and the Keen Duelists are all black. But it's just basics and duels in one flavor or another. We have no utility lands. We're not running any like cycling lands or anything like that. It's just basics and Sunlit Marsh to find with your cyclers, and then cheap dual lands that you can find, just draw. Like, just in your opening hand, you want a dual land, maybe a couple basics, and you're good.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get fancy with it. In the sideboard, we've got 4 Duress, 4 Soul Guide Lanterns, so those are just very basic. You want cheap filler cards in your sideboard, so this is very good hand disruption and very good graveyard hate. These are format staples in sideboards. We've got 3 Damping Sphere, so again, we're more worried about the combo decks, the big spell decks. We're not super worried about the Cloud Post decks, but this is also good against those.
Yeah.
We've got Decree of Pain, so if we're fighting against those aggressive low to the ground decks that are the ones that can get through Deafening Silence, we have something we can bring in instead of the Deafening Silences. And this is a 5 mana instant -2/2 draw a card. So we're not looking to pay 8 mana for this basically ever. If that happens, the game has gone in a weird direction. This is a 5 mana spell that flips over for 8 damage on the Keen Duelists.
Yeah.
And then for the decks that want to just push us super long, we do have a Debtor's Knell that we can bring in. This is another one where you could easily turn it into something else if you want to free up the budget. It's not a core part of the deck. It's just a 7-drop. Like, in this deck, the mana values are weird because you want to be able to play stuff, but you also want to have stuff that's super expensive.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of have a balance between, am I casting this card, or am I just flipping it off the top of my deck and then not worrying about it later? And Debtor's Knell is one of those cards that leans more towards we're flipping it over, but we can also bring it in against decks where they're trying to just grind us out. Like, I've seen some, like, I wouldn't bring this in against counterspell control decks. I've seen some people who are trying to brew like 8 Siege Rhino type decks with the new uncommon Siege Rhino. I've also seen some people who are trying to brew through like some green black mid-range type decks. So that's the kind of thing where you would want to bring in an enchantment that kind of just grinds through the game. Be aware that it does get hit by creature removal or by graveyard removal. So if they're already bringing that in because of your reanimation plan, just be aware of that for sideboarding.
Yeah. He was considering board because this whole thing was kind of a haberdash mess, but there's some stuff to look at for later. We won't go into it, but I will scroll down and we can go over some hands.
Yeah.
This
is a great hand. Yeah, this is turn 1. Put 2 creatures in the graveyard. Turn 2, if they don't mess with your graveyard, you can reanimate Troll. If they do mess with your graveyard, you can play a Keen Duelist. So this hand, I think, is kind of like ideal. You don't have a Deafening Silence or a Black Vice, which are also very strong early plays you like to have in your opener, but you are going to just do the reanimate thing.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's try another hand.
So this is the Black Vice into Keen Duelists. So this is probably going to deal a bunch of damage to face, but it's also going to do it to you. So this hand would be absolutely brutal against a controller mid-range deck. It might actually be fast enough to stop a combo deck, which a lot of your hands are not, but this one is just so much raw damage to the face that it could. But this is going to be really bad against aggressive decks.
Let's draw a card and see what it gets. Oh, there's a third land, so we can get Parker Luck. No problem.
Yeah, so third land. But yeah, like if you do take a bunch of damage, then the Shadow of Mortality becomes live, and that's a big blocker. So I'm not super worried about this hand. I certainly wouldn't mulligan it. It's just matchup dependent.
Flip into a Shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a little bit slower. I would be pretty close to mulliganing this because it just doesn't do anything on turn 1 at all. The mana, though, is pretty good. You can use that empty turn 1 to set up your tap land, which is going to make your Isolated Chapel come in untapped. So I think this hand is fine, but it's very borderline. If you wanted to mulligan this, I wouldn't have anything to say about it.
Let's see what the draws are. So turn 1, did you Sunlit? Turn 2, Isolated Chapel. Do we do Keen Duelist or Angel?
It would depend on what's going on. If the opponent's on Affinity, we would want to set up the Angel. If the opponent is a control deck, we would want to try and stick Keen Duelist, and then next turn try and stick Parker Luck and start the face damage.
Got it. Well, let's see what the draw is. That's not terrible.
That's actually pretty bad. Like, we already have effectively 4 lands in our opener with the Angel cycling, so another land is almost entirely dead unless we want to cast a Scyzon.
Land. Yeah, no.
Yeah, this hand is just not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, if a bunch of Keen Duelist effects wins the game, this hand is good, but the problem is we would be flipping these lands with Keen Duelist.
Yeah.
At least the planes would.
Yeah.
And so we're not getting anywhere. We're not doing a bunch of damage.
Let's do 2 more hands, then we'll switch to the Yojimbo. Alright, deal another hand.
This is totally fine. This is a turn 1 Black Vice. Turn 2 we can cycle for either land. Turn 3 Parker Luck. And if we draw a reanimation spell, we've got a creature in the graveyard.
Let's draw a card.
So again, like,
Shadow's not great.
No, Shadow is exactly what we want to draw here, because this hand I was going to say is also weak to aggro, but Shadow is going to just be a 7/7.
Yeah, and then Parker Luck.
I mean, you can't be upset about drawing Parker Lucks. That's the whole point of the deck.
Yeah.
If you don't want to draw Parker Lucks, we're playing the wrong list.
Yeah. Let's do one more hand. This is fantastic.
This is fine. Like, you've got turn 1 Sunlit Marsh, turn 2 Isolated Chapel, and drop Black Vice and Silence. If you suspect your opponent is on a specific archetype, you could turn 1 either of the 1-drops, like Black Vice against Control or Silence against Combo, and just try and punish them a little bit more than usual. But it's also fine to just kind of get them out on turn 2.
Let's draw. Oh, Scyzon's pretty good.
Scyzon in this hand is rough. You don't want Scyzon until very late in the game.
Yeah. Shadow.
Shadow in this hand is only okay because we don't have a Keen Duelist and we only have 1 Parker Luck.
Definitely Silence. It's getting worse.
That second this hand, I think, would lose most matchups at this point. Like, we straight up are not doing anything. We haven't found a cycler yet, so all of this reanimation is doing nothing. We've got, like, that's the worst cycler in the deck. Yeah, this is a bad hand. This hand straight up does not win 90% of games against anything.
It was very promising, but then the draws are bad.
It had a land that it didn't need, and it had a reanimation spell and no target.
Yeah.
This is fine. This is a reanimation spell with a cycler. This is a turn 1 Deafening Silence into turn 2 Keen Duelist. So this will allow us to get onto the board pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And also fix mana a little bit. Looking at these opening hands, we might actually not need as many lands as we have.
Yeah.
because the deck legitimately will run on 3 pretty much,
Yeah.
especially if the size ends do get trimmed.
There's room for tinkering.
Yep.
The average total mana value is 195. Or the deck's total mana value is 195.
Yeah.
And the deck's average mana value is 3.25 with lands and 4.76 without lands. If you were playing, if these averages were for any other deck, it would be absolute nonsense.
Yep.
Yeah.
But again, we only care about that upper right corner as far as our Parker Lux and King Duelists are concerned. Everything else, we're not actually paying that cost.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's Parker. That's bad luck. We played it last week though on Cockatrice. We had some technical issues. We might play this one again in a few weeks, just cause like it's a neat deck to play. It's fun. It has some very it pops off really well.
Yeah, I also am interested in brewing a little bit with a blue-black version of this deck,
That'll be interesting.
so that you get access to Brain Surge and Brainstorm to kind of set up the duelist effects a little more.
Yeah.
So you might see that as well in the future.
Yeah. All right. So now we're on to Yojimbo, your baby.
All right. So as like we've said, this deck has actually been getting some wins at local events. And the biggest problem with this deck is not card quality, it is Disruptor Flutes can't decide whether they want to be $1 or $2.
They are currently 171.
Yeah, like I played this deck on Thursday, slightly different, and it was like 29.50. And when we went to make this video, I had to update some of the cards because it was 32.75.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much entirely because of Disruptor Flutes. But the deck is good and the Disruptor Flutes are really good, so I think they justify their costs at the current price. So let's start up at the top and then we'll work our way down. So this is a mono white prison deck based mostly around artifacts and enchantments. So this is kind of an archetype that has existed in Magic since Alpha, where you just play artifacts and enchantments that lock stuff down. Icy Manipulator, Sarah Angel, just kind of big creatures, stacks effects, Wrath of God, balance. So that's what we're doing here. And we are building around Summon Yojimbo from the Final Fantasy set, which is a 4-mana 5/5 with
Technically,
Vigilance.
the Final Fantasy
Who
Commander
is
set.
also... I don't care about Commander. It's all Commander now, Drew. It's just all Commander.
It is a difference.
It's all Commander. There's no difference. People for value vintage should be buying singles. It doesn't matter what set a card is from because you're not going to open packs looking for it.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is a 5-mana 5 or a 4-mana 5/5 Vigilance. The first chapter on the saga exiles an artifact, an enchantment, or a tapped creature an opponent controls. So right off the bat, he comes in, he eats one of your opponent's best permanents. The second and third chapter are until your next turn. You can't be attacked unless they pay 2 for each attacker. So on the second and third turn you have him, he's a Ghostly Prison. And then the fourth chapter, which is the one where he dies, is just if they have a big creature for power or greater, you get a treasure token. That's bad. It's basically a non-existent ability. And we'll see later that you're trying to just never have that ability happen anyway. We have 4 Timeless Dragon. So this is our one of our big flyers. It's a 5/5 flying for 5. It also has Plane Cycling 2 and Eternalize for 4. So Eternalize is 2 white, exile it from your graveyard, get a copy of it that's a 4/4 zombie. So what that does for you is it gives you a threat that is uncounterable and you can use under an opponent's standstill. and it also is just big. It is a big flying body, and it fixes your mana. And we also have a non-basic planes in this deck that you can find that does some work. So Mistveil Plains is in the mana base, and it's very relevant to be able to tutor for that in some matchups.
And then
Back in the creature, we have Dust Animus. So Dust Animus is basically a modern version of Exalted Angel from Onslaught, if we have any pre-modern players watching. Instead of playing face down for 3 and flipping up for 4, you plot it for 2, which means you exile it face up, and then you can cast it for free later. And then when it comes into play, if you have 5 or more untapped lands, it has 2+1/+1 counters and a lifelink counter, and then it always has flying. So this is either a 2-mana 2/3 flyer, which is very relevant against the initiative decks because a 2-mana flyer can take the initiative pretty handily. But if you wait until the late game, this is a 4/5 flying lifelink.
And like the late game for this deck is like way later than it seems. Like this is like a mid game card because like decks with this games with this deck have gone to turns.
This deck is not intended to win quickly. It absolutely can. Like you can go turn 1 Sol Ring, turn 2 5/5, turn 3 5/5, and just push. But that's not what the deck is designed to do. This is a prison deck. We are trying to make the game take forever, and we are going to grind our opponent out of resources until they give up, or until we just eventually kill them with a 4-power flying creature.
Yeah. And those Dust Animus come out way sooner than they seem.
Yeah, because this deck makes its land drops very well because of the Timeless Dragons and the Razorgrass ambushes, which we'll get to in a little bit. This deck has, I believe, 27 or 28 lands effectively. 19 plus 4 Razorgrass plus 4 Timeless Dragons.
Yeah.
So we're almost half of our deck is mana. Yeah, Restoration of Aganjo finds mana. Half of our deck is mana, so we're not usually missing land drops as long as we have a couple in our opener. And all of our mana generally also does other stuff. Sorceries, we've got 1 balance, which this is a good white control deck. It plays balance very well. And 3 Shatter the Sky. So we do have creatures that are big enough to draw cards from Shatter the Sky if we have to pull the trigger when we have creatures in play. So that is relevant. I tested Promise of Loyalty, and there's some in the sideboard, but I think main deck, you just want to completely clean the board.
Yeah.
Instance, we've got 3 Swords to Plowshares. I'd love to have 4, but the budget on this deck is just so tight. And this deck doesn't really struggle with creature decks. We are more worried about other hard control decks and burn decks that can go face very efficiently. We're not worried about getting attacked over and over again by like Thing in the Ice or some small creatures. Like, we don't care if our opponent has a Dark Confidant or whatever. We just don't. Like, this is in here for utility creatures. Like, we want to be able to take out mana dorks. We want to be able to take out creatures that can blow up our permanents. We're not worried about getting beat down by a 2/2 or a 3/3 or a prowess guy or whatever.
Yeah.
We have 4 Razorgrass Ambush also. Again, we're not super worried about attackers, but we can afford a set of these, and they let us boost our land count, which is what we're actually trying to do. I would love if some of these could be Witch Enchanters or whatever it's called instead, but that card is just expensive.
Witch Enchanter. Anyway. Then we have all the artifacts.
Yep. Let's just do the enchantment first, because there's only one of those. So, Restoration of Aganjo, 3 mana enchantment saga. First one, find a basic plains. Unfortunately, it's basic, so we can't find the Mist Veil, but it does go and just find us a permanent to put into play. The second one is you may discard a card. When you do, you get a trigger to reanimate any permanent that costs 2 or less for, just straight into play. It does come in tapped, but you can discard the planes that you tutored for, and it just comes into play tap. So this is kind of a rampant growth with other options. Being able to put in Vexing Bauble or Disruptor Flute uncounterably has been pretty useful as well.
Yeah.
And then the third chapter is it transforms into a 3/4 Vigilance that when it attacks or blocks, you get a 1/1 token. So 4 toughness in this format does matter because Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt are the burn spells that you're most likely to run into. Galvanic Blast, which is big in Pauper, is a little bit expensive dollar-wise for this format. And if your opponent is Fire Blasting your 3/4, you're probably in an okay place.
Yeah.
So 3/4 is a good body, and then the tokens kind of gum things up a little bit as well. These don't usually live that long. You usually get like 1 attack and 1 block out of them. But the primary work on this card is putting a permanent into play for free.
It survives Anger of the Gods.
Getting you mana. It does survive Anger of the Gods. It survives Brotherhood End. Survives all the various Infest cards that are -2/-2 or -3/-3. It does die to Languish. Languish has been seeing a little bit of an uptick, so that does clean it up. But if the opponent is playing Languish against your Yojimbo Timeless Dragon Dust Animus deck, you probably feel fine.
Yeah. Hey, Mutilate dropped the price. They could be playing Mutilate.
If they're playing Mutilate, cool. Like, I'm happy to play against control decks that don't have counter spells all day, every day with this list. If we want to scroll up to the artifacts,
yeah.
So we've got 2 Bonder's Ornament. So this is colored mana, so taps for white, which is relevant because we do have a decent amount of colorless sources among our mana base. So tapping for white can be helpful, especially for the double white on Timeless Dragon and Shatter the Sky. And then the real reason this is in here over something else is 4 tap. Each player who controls a permanent named Bonder's Ornament draws a card. I have never had an opponent and me control Bonder's Ornament at the same time in this format, so I would not worry about that. It does come up in Pauper, but not really in Value Vintage. Actually, they banned it in Paupers. Yeah, they banned it in Pauper because that was becoming a problem. It's not a problem in Value Vintage. Mind Stone, just 4 mana, or 4 of a 2 mana rock. 1 tap, sack, draw a card. So you can reanimate this with Restoration of Aganjo and get more cards. It helps you curve into Yojimbo. So turn 1, you can just play Swords or something, or a tapped land, and then turn 2 Mind Stone, turn 3 Yojimbo, and your deck is going. So Mind Stone and Bonder's Ornament are kind of a little bit of glue that kind of hold the deck together and give you a little bit of draw power and a little bit of ramp. They're not absurdly good at either, but they're just versatile. And you do want engines for the late game. So Bonder's Ornament is one of those things that when you have gotten to like turn 10 or turn 7 or whatever, and you're starting to close the door, but you need to be able to keep up with a random draw spell that your opponent can rip off the top, Bonder's Ornament is one of your ways to do that.
Yeah.
We've got a Soul Ring. This is a mono white deck that's looking to cast 4 and 5 drops. Soul Ring is perfect. We've got a Vexing Bauble. You do want ways to interfere with the unfair decks. So as of the main deck, we have Vexing Bauble, Disruptor Flute, and then Yojimbo and Scepter of Domination or Dominance. Yeah. Depending on what the opponent is doing. If they're like a tinker deck and they're trying to tinker for a big artifact threat, we have the Scepter. If they're a high tide deck, we can kind of disruptor flute them and just make them slow down a lot. But Vexing Bobble is mostly in here for the Cascade decks, because those are decks that can actually get onto the board fast enough to push through. So we have Vexing Bobble, we have Balance, and we have Shatter the Sky to try and deal with those. Scepter is just a 3-mana Icy Manipulator. Like, it costs white to cast, which is actually good because of Mistveil Plains, and it costs white to activate, which can be a little tricky. You have to keep in mind how you're tapping your mana if you have multiple Scepters in play, which is one of the end states for the deck, is just having multiple Scepters and a Yojimbo on Ghostly Prison and a Timeless Dragon token attacking that the opponent just can't fight through.
And then there's a real bullshit trick you do once we get into the lands.
Yeah, a Scepter of Dominance does tap any permanent, which means it can tap lands, and it often does tap lands. And then in the end of the artifacts, we've got Disruptor Flutes. So these things are expensive, and you have to run 4 of them. They do so much work in this deck. The games where you have a Disruptor Flute or 2 and can just shut down whatever your opponent is trying to do to get around what you're doing are very strong. Like, if the opponent is on like a Martyr proc deck, you get to lock down their Martyrs and their Commies and their Sky Hussars. I had all of those come up on Thursday. If the opponent is like, I played against a Sibsig Ceremony deck, and you can name Acerak, and they just can't infinitely Acerak you anymore with Relic of Legends, because now Acerak costs 4 mana instead of 1.
Yeah.
I've played against Amalia combo with this deck, so you can just name Amalia and she can't come out until turn 5 instead of turn 2, which is buying you time to find Swords to Plowshares or Shadow the Sky for the other combo pieces. Played against Slimes Against Humanity decks. Like, whatever weird stuff your local meta has, Disruptor Flute is probably going to be much better against it than the Swords to Plowshares and Vexing Baubles that are more aimed at the meta decks are.
Whenever I see Disruptor Flute, I think of the Green Lantern's stupid little flute sound.
Yeah.
I don't even like Power Rangers, but like, it's that Green Ranger's flute sound. Anyway,
As far as lands, so we've only got 19, but again, it's really more like half of our deck is mana. Probably more than half, counting the mana rocks. Like, we're looking at legitimately 2/3 of the deck being mana almost, but it works. It works fine. You don't feel flooded normally. I am open to the idea of cutting a plains for another unbasic or something else. At this point, the reason we have 9 plains is not because I think 9 plains is the perfect number. It is because the deck has 2 cents of wiggle room. And if we cut a plains, we would have to add a card that costs actual money. Mistveil Plains is a way to put stuff back in your deck, and you're thinking, well, it goes on the bottom, so how likely are we to see those cards again? And the thing about that is we have ways to shuffle our deck. So Restoration and Timeless Dragon are both 4-ofs that shuffle our deck. We also have Monumental Hinge, which looks at 5 cards off the top and then puts 4 or 5 of them on the bottom, depending on if you take something. So if you activate Monumental Hinges 3 times in a long game, you are 15 cards, plus however many actual draws you've gotten, towards the bottom of your deck, which isn't always enough to get you back to the cards you've put in if you haven't shuffled. But if the opponent is milling you at all, which, again, our local meta has some very wild brews that people have brought. If the opponent is milling you, then you're going to get to the bottom of your deck no problem.
Yeah.
So Monumental Hinge, while we're talking about it, is the reason why this deck has so many artifacts. I believe our deck has the restoration, so 4 enchantments, 15 artifacts, and then 4 summon Yojimbos. So we're looking at over 20 historic cards in our deck, and there's more of them in the sideboard if we need to bring them in.
Yeah.
I would like to fit in some legendary lands, but the only one that's really possible that does something interesting is Wrath's Edge, and that is a colorless land, and it's also 50 or 60 cents, so I decided not to do it. But it's on the considering section. If the disruptor flutes go back down to $1 again, they've been going up and down for a while. I don't know that I put it in the actual considering, but it's on my list of things to think about.
And then there's Dust Bowl and Nesting Grounds.
We have Dust Bowl. So let's go over Dust Bowl. If you are doing Nesting Ground shenanigans, actually, let's talk about Nesting Grounds first, because this is important to understand. Nesting Ground is a land that taps for colorless, or you can pay 1 tap and move a counter from target permanent you control onto a second target permanent. Activate only as a sorcery. So what this lets us do is take counters off of our sagas and put counters on sagas later. So we can play a Restoration of Eiganjo and immediately remove the counter, and what that means is it's just going to go find a basic plains every turn until we run out of basic plains. And then we can just tick it up to 2 and then tick it up to 3 immediately. We can remove a counter from Yojimbo, which means every turn he's going to exile an artifact, an enchantment, or a tapped creature. So that is backbreaking when you do it to people who their deck is just not built to lose an important permanent every turn. And we are putting them in a lock where that is what's going to happen.
You can get to a point where you just get a perpetual ghostly prison.
Yeah, that's one of the options. And if they try and play around it by just not tapping their creatures, so like, okay, well, you're going to exile my tapped creatures, I'm just not going to tap them for their ability or attack or whatever, then you have Scepter of Dominance in your deck, which lets you just be like, well, I'm going to tap your guy anyway, so too bad.
Yeah.
But the real busted thing here is we can go and find lands every turn with Restoration of Eiganjo and feed them into Dust Bowl, which is also a land that taps for colorless, and it has 3 taps, sacrifice a land, destroy target non-basic land. So if the opponent has 2 basics and 3 non-basics and 2 mana rocks, and the game goes long enough, we will eventually just put their mana down to those 2 basic lands.
Yeah.
And then we can start tapping those 2 basic lands with the Scepter of Dominance.
Yeah.
And this sounds like a far-fetched thing that's never really going to happen.
Nope.
I have done that against control decks, aggro decks, and combo decks. The deck is just very good at grinding your opponent out of resources.
It is
because
brutal.
You slow them down with the scepters and the flutes and the removal spells, and then by the time they have gotten enough mana to play through the disruptor flutes or the scepters, you are now Dust Bowling them. You are reanimating another disruptor flute with your Restoration of Eiganjo. So now if you need to, their important card, High Tide or whatever, costs 6 more mana instead of 3. So like, how are they going to beat you if they have to play 7 islands to resolve a High Tide that taps them out? Like, that's just not a reliable way to win a game. And if you are forcing the combo decks into their plan B, where like High Tide's plan B is just have 2 Cloud of Fairies and a Lutri and just try and attack, this deck can't be attacked easily because you can set up a perpetual Ghostly Prison, or you can set up perpetual exile target creature, or you can just tap down 1 or 2 attackers every turn. This deck just is legitimately a prison deck. I don't think there are a lot of pure prison decks in Value Vintage. There's Lantern Control, which we've done, and there are some other ways to build Rest in Peace Energy Field, but people are not generally sitting down expecting to play against Prison. They're expecting to play against counterspell based control or hand disruption based control. And that's not what we're doing. We're just denying you resources until you give up.
Yep.
As far as the sideboard goes, we've got the Soul Guide Lanterns, 4 of Soul Guide Lantern, just basic. We can reanimate these with Restoration of Aganjo. We can find them with the Monumental Henge. They are castable off of our colorless lands, so if we're stuck on like only 1 white mana for a while, these aren't going to tax our white mana. And they're a very efficient graveyard hate. So one of the decks that can keep up with the grinding we're doing are the Lurrus type decks. And Soul Guide Lantern lets us also beat the Lurrus type decks, as does Calamity's Wake. So Calamity's Wake is one that I think people don't play enough. It is a 2-mana instant that exiles all graveyards. So we do care about our own graveyard, but generally not as much in the matchups where we care about the opponent's graveyard. And it also says players can't cast non-creature spells this turn, and it exiles itself. So, like, again, if the opponent is doing Cascade stuff or High Tide stuff or Channel Mirror stuff, Calamity's Wake is just like, no, your turn is done. We're not doing whatever you're doing. Let's go to the next turn.
Yeah.
And it nukes their graveyard at the same time. So, like, against Living End, you're like, okay, well, we're gonna stop your Living End from resolving off your Cascade, and we're gonna exile all your targets as we do it. Living End is not the most common Cascade list. I think Rhinos and Restore Balance are both more. But Calamity's Wake is just, if they're trying to Cascade, Calamity's Wake is basically a counterspell for 2 mana and white. It's just very strong for 12 cents.
Yeah.
Curse of Silence is one that I just put in, and it needs some testing, but it kind of is extra copies of Disruptor Flute. It doesn't have the Pithing Needle effect, but it does have the tax effect, and we can play it on turn 1. So it comes down a little bit faster. And if you are using it just for a little bit of value to slow down like a control deck or whatever, then when they do finally cast the spell, you can cash it in for a card, and then that puts it in the graveyard to reanimate with Restoration. So it's kind of more of that draw a card restoration thing that we can do with the deck in the late game. So I'm interested to see how it works. They're not super expensive. They're about $0.25. They are replacing the Stone Brain, which is just got up to like 50 or 60 cents, and I couldn't afford them with how much Disruptor Flutes cost now. We've got some Sorcerous Spyglasses, where these are the Pithing Needle side of Disruptor Flute. So if the opponent is on some like activated ability stuff like Seismic Swans, or if they're on just random planeswalkers, like they have a Minskin Boo or whatever, then Sorcerer's Spyglass can also shut that down. And again, it's an artifact to find off Monumental Henge, and they're a nickel. So, like, these are really just filling out the sideboard, as is the Disenchant. Like, we don't really care if we have a Disenchant in our sideboard, but it's a 7-cent card that does do some work. So it's just filling in. Like, again, the way that this deck is built, we have 2 cents of wiggle room. So the cards that feel like weird choices are not in here because they're the best possible cards. They're in here because you have to respect the budget part of the format.
Yeah.
And then we've got 2 Promise of Loyalty. So if the opponent is a go wide deck, and so all of their creatures are going to be small, and we want to keep our big creatures, so Yojimbo or Timeless Dragon, Promise of Loyalty is a good sweeper for that. It's less good than Shatter the Sky against the decks where the opponent's creatures have relevant abilities. So there's only in the sideboard, and we only have 2 of them. But this is another one where Maybe we would like to have better wraths, but these are 15 cents and they do the job. And we are very interested in a wrath that lets us keep a creature in play because our deck does eventually win with a big creature or two big creatures.
Yeah.
So that is the deck. If we want to look at a couple of hands.
Yeah. All right.
I would mulligan this going blind. This is a totally fine hand.
Okay.
Like you have some stacks, you have some lands, you have a land cycler, so which is also going to be your threat, and then you also have Dust Bowl. So like you don't want Dust Bowl early, but you do want to have it by the time it's relevant. So it's not hurting this hand because we have 3 white sources, counting the dragon and the razor grass. So we can use our scepter just fine, and everything else is colorless or is going to find its own white mana. So this is a totally fine hand.
Let's draw a card. Which is card? All right.
Yeah, so if the opponent's on creatures, we're going to shatter them. We're going to disrupt more. So, like, this hand is lacking a Swords to Plowshares. So if we have to use the Razor Grass Ambush as a land, and the opponent is like very fast, like a Goblin Guide Monastery Swift Spear deck, they might be able to pile us down before we can shatter the sky on time. But against anything else, this is a pretty reasonable starter.
Yeah. Let's do another hand. No lands.
Well, hold on, let me actually check, because not all of our lands look like lands, but yeah, this is no land. This is more mana than you would like, but it does have a turn 3 Shatter the Sky, and all of our lands are going to enter untapped. So we can cash in the Mind Stone and reanimate it with Restoration. So this hand is doing things. It's kind of a grindier hand, but it does have the turn 3 Sweeper to set up that grind.
Let's draw separate. Okay.
Scepter's fine. Scepter's going to buy us more time. We're looking more for like a Yojimbo or a Timeless Dragon here.
So would you Scepter? Would you Mind Stone? Would you Shatter?
Alright. Second Shatter is potentially very bad.
Plains, Swords.
Plains is whatever. Swords is okay. Like, if the opponent is trying to do creature stuff, this hand is really, really good. If the opponent is trying to set up like a standstill, we're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
And if they're a combo deck, we have drawn none of our real combo stoppers.
Yeah. We've drawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. And
yeah, this hand just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it had promise though.
This is probably fine. Like you're missing a third mana to cast these chonker spells, but the third mana can be colorless. And we have 2 swords up front.
Let's see if we draw it. Yeah! 2 turns later.
So we're going to be able to plot this Dust Animus, so that does give us another thing to do with our mana. And then we do find that third land pretty eventually, like not super late.
Would you Restoration on turn... If we're on the play, draw this, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. So we're a little bit below
we
curve,
missed a land drop, but we have the removal spells to keep from getting run over immediately.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Draw one more and see where we get.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
So that's another land. We're doing great with this hand.
The Restoration gets us more lands anyway. So
again, we haven't found the Disruptor Flutes or the Vexing Baubles, so we're kind of dogged to combo. But this deck is just... Combo is something that you're going to struggle with game 1. You're going to have to try and board in to beat whatever specific stuff they're doing. And I have won game 1s against combo with this deck just because you can pressure them enough that they can't reliably go off as fast as they are intending to. This hand is bad. This is 6 mana and then 1 scepter.
Yeah. No.
This is totally fine.
This is totally fine?
Yeah, you have 2 lands. Razorcrest Ambush is an untapped land. So we're going to turn 1, Monumental Hinge. Turn 2, draw a card. Play Razorcrest Ambush as an untapped land and play either Mind Stone or Disruptor Flute. And then we're going to draw another card. And then we can play either Plot of Dust Animus. If we played Mind Stone, we can get Bonder's Ornament out, which gets us to Yojimbo.
Yeah.
So, like, this deck can start with 2 lands and be fine.
Yeah. Let's draw one more card. Oh, it's land. All right.
Yeah, we're totally fine. Like, you have to be careful mulliganing this because a lot of your mana is not a land on the front. It's either an artifact or an instant or a creature that is going to turn into mana later in the game. So you have to have 2 mana or a Soul Ring. So like 1 Plains and a Soul Ring gets you there, 2 lands and a Mind Stone gets you there. You're just looking to hit 3 mana by turn 3, and you're totally fine.
Let's do one more hand and we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
This is great.
This is great, yeah.
Turn 1 swords if they play something relevant like a Mana Dork. Turn 2 Mind Stone. Turn 3 either Flute or Ornament. What would our first couple draws be?
Scepter Dominance, so that's pretty
Scepter's
good.
fine.
Plains pretty good.
Plains, I would like to see a different land here, but lands in general are fine because we need them for Dust Animus eventually.
So we've drawn Scepter, Plains, and Bonder's Ornament.
Yep. And we've got some stacks, we've got some removal, we've got a Scepter, we've got a Dust Animus to plot. And remember, Dust Animus as a 2/3 can be fine in some matchups. Like, it doesn't always have to wait until we have 5 lands.
Let's draw one more card. Oh, that's pretty good.
So yeah, we didn't need that really because we have the Bonder's Ornaments as our late game draw. I would have rather had a Dust Bowl or a Nesting Grounds as our utility land, but it's fine.
Yeah.
More removal.
Not bad. All right.
The deck on paper doesn't look like it should win as much as it does. The opponent is always going to think, well, you're not doing anything strong, so I'm just going to do my thing. And then every time they try and do their thing, they just stumble a little, and then they stumble a little more, and then they can't quite draw what they need. And then their best permanent is gone on the turn where they were going to try and use it. And it's frustrating to play against because it is a prison deck. If somebody wanted to board against this deck and they had access to like Meltdown, this deck is pretty weak to artifact and enchantment hate that can hit multiple permanents. But even if the opponent has a lot of artifact and enchantment hate, you always just have the option to make Dust Animus and Timeless Dragon and just fly in.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Anyway, this list will be locked because we lock our video lists, but I will be continuing to tune this deck as prices change and the meta shifts. So I'll add some cards to the considering list for this deck that people might want to be aware of. And if you see us play this deck in the future and it's like, hey, that card's not in the deck, or why do they never draw this? I thought they were on 4 of them. It's because probably card prices went up or down, and so we've adjusted.
Toad locks his list. I don't lock my list.
Yeah, this is very much a good deck already, but also a work in progress, keeping it at $30.
Yeah. My lists are bad, so they stay under $30. Except for the Instant Energy list. That Instant Energy list has been pretty good.
Well, the Instant Energy list is the core of that deck is so cheap that we can play like $7 worth of Storm Carved Coasts.
Yeah. Until they get blown up by you.
Yes, I blew up all of Drew's dual lands in the game that we played on Thursday twice.
Though, in matches against this one and Instant Energy, we are 2 for 2.
Yeah.
It's like I've won 2, you've won 2. So, yeah.
I think the changes that I've made to the deck have made it better against Izzet Energy.
Drats.
Like that is a deck where I do like to have a disenchant in the sideboard, for example. And then that is also a deck where the Dust Animus being main deck is doing a lot of work, and the Dust Bowls are just brutal.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're looking on screen now, on the top left of your screen, there will be a video suggested just for you. It's special. You should watch it. And on the bottom left of our screen, you will find a playlist with all the other Magic Talk with Toads. They are fun watches, especially some of our more recent ones, like our Spider-Man video, where we did a whole PowerPoint over our top picks for Spider-Man. And if you like that sort of format for spoilers, there's going to be a lot of spoilers, so there might be a lot of PowerPoints. Just make sure to leave a comment.
Yep, our spoiler reviews from now on are going to be PowerPoints because people have said it helps them focus on what we're saying more.
Yeah.
And they don't bother me at all, so we'll keep leaking those out for you.
They're just kind of an annoyance to make. It's fun, but it's also the same point where, like, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I put the list together, Drew throws in a couple of cards, and then he spends like 2 hours on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I spend less time on logo design.
Yeah.
Professional logo design takes me like 45 minutes. Goofy ass PowerPoint takes me like 2 hours.
Yeah. But if anybody has decks or cards that they'd like to see, they may not get a full video, but we've done a lot of user decks. Somebody was working on a list in Discord, and we just built their list and played it on one of the gameplay videos so that they could get some feedback. So if you've got lists that you like, jump in the Value Vintage Discord. We can put a link to that in the comments, and there are people there who will help you build any deck you can think of. Like, the culture there is very welcoming to cards that people might think are not great or don't do very much. We will try to find a way to make your card work as long as it isn't just like a vanilla 3-mana 2/1 or something.
Yeah. And as long as your card's not exuberantly expensive. Come on, be realistic here.
Right. If you're trying to fit, like, for example, Zodiac Pig into a deck, well, I don't know if we can make that work.
Zodiac Pig's like $40 right now.
I know, it's so sad. It's the death of an icon.
Anyway.
All right. Well, anyway, that has been Magic Talk with Toad, with me, Toad, and Drew.
Hello.
So, like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff that YouTube tells us we have to tell you to do.
Please,
you know
really
the
helps.
drill.
Yeah, like I said, check out the top left. It's a special video for you, and bottom left is the whole playlist. You should watch them all. They're pretty, like, they're an hour long on average, and they're fun. And like you can kind of see the history of Value Vintage as we go on. The longer we do this, the more of a history you'll see.
Yeah. The history of our personal journey through this format that Drew has known about for a while, but he was hiding it from me. And then I've just been in here for like 6 months trying to figure things out.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Yep.
We will talk to you all later.
We appreciate all of you.
Bye.
Bye.